Passwords for Colorado's voting systems were posted online for anyone to see for months, if you knew where to look. Democratic Secretary of State Jena Griswold's office apparently posted them online by accident. Griswold's office found out last Thursday and had not told the county clerks who actually run elections. Then the Colorado Republican Party went public today, demanding that Griswold secure those voting machines. Here's Marshall Zellinger.
The Colorado Secretary of State's office is required to maintain a spreadsheet of certified voting systems for each county. That's this list. At the bottom of any spreadsheet, you can have multiple tabs. You can also hide a tab. But if you post the raw spreadsheet to a public website, apparently anyone can also unhide the tab. This happened and apparently revealed one set of passwords for voting computers in Colorado. Next confirmed this with the Secretary of State's office today, but we learned about it this morning in an email blast from the Colorado Republican Party. The passwords had been up for months without it being known, and some, but not all, were current and active.
There are 2 passwords to get into any voting component along with physical access.
Democratic Colorado Secretary of State Jena Griswold explained how each computer component requires 2 passwords to gain access. The ones on the website were just one of the passwords, and it requires in-person access by multiple people, which is tracked by 24/7 video recording and badge IDs that record who has gained access.
We have layers of security, and out of just an abundance of caution, have staff in the field changing passwords, looking at access logs.
The truth is this a concern? Yes. Is it being mitigated? Yes. Does this mean that all of the computers are connected to the internet and that votes are being flipped? No.
Matt Crane is the former Republican Arapahoe County Clerk and current Executive Director of the County Clerks Association. He admits this is not great news, but not something that will compromise anyone's vote.
I want to stress here, this isn't all Republicans, but you will have some Republicans who will use this for political and financial purposes, whereas we as clerks, we will stay in the truth and honoring our oath of office to serve our constituents in a truthful and honest manner.
Well, that spreadsheet that you just saw scrolling is a visible spreadsheet on the Secretary of State's website under Voting System Inventory, and I just clicked on it fresh here, and it's a blank white spreadsheet, so apparently work in progress right now. Delete it all instead of just delete the hidden tab.
Secretary of State's office rightly points out that this alone cannot compromise the election system. There'd have to be somebody on the inside with physical access to a machine to use these passwords. But for people who don't have faith in the election system, or people who are wondering, this is a hell of an error.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. I've learned something about spreadsheets that if you hit hide, that someone could unhide it. But look at it this way. It's like if you're worried about who has missile control and it takes 2 keys. I'm thinking in the movie Crimson Tide. You've got one person with the key and turn, and you need that second person who works at the county that has access to this other password. That person would have to do something too. And even then, it's not clear if you could do anything about votes that were in the system or that will be counted. You could just be changing the system of the computer, like, hey, we're going to be Central Time instead of Mountain Time, stuff like that. But you need 2 people, and this is just one bit of information that one person would need, and you're still lacking the second person with that second bit of information.
As much as we stress it, I feel like you can hear the conspiracy theories being born of this error. Marshall Zellinger, thank you. Secretary Griswold told me today that she had not decided whether to tell you, the public, about that password leak before she got called out on it publicly today. I asked Secretary Griswold whether she takes responsibility for this election security breach in the same way that she has held others accountable. And we discussed a string of errors by her office that can damage voter confidence.
To be very clear, we do not see this as a full security threat to the state. This is not a security threat.
You do frequent media interviews warning of the insider threats to elections. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security defines an insider threat as somebody who uses authorized access wittingly or unwittingly to do harm. Did the actions of your office pose an insider threat to elections?
No.
In 2021, when Mesa County's voting system passwords leaked, your office said, quote, "The public disclosure of the BIOS passwords for one or more components of Mesa County's voting system alone constitutes a serious breach of voting system security protocols. By that standard, did your office commit a serious breach of voting system security protocols?"
Well, to push back on you, Kyle, that sentence is in the press release, but there is a much bigger press release. And part of that investigation in Mesa County was 2 sets of passwords, unauthorized access, stolen passwords, and it was in a different time. Since 2021 and what happened in Mesa County, our security has improved, including the 24/7 hour cameras, including the badge and access. The law has been significantly strengthened since then. We have multiple layers in place to ensure situations like Mesa County don't occur, and that is not what is occurring here.
This is not the first time that your office has made mistakes that have damaged voters' confidence in our elections. In 2022, your office sent out mailers to 30,000 non-citizens inviting them to register to vote. They, of course, are not eligible to register to vote. That same year, your office used Colorado's ballot tracking system to send messages to specific Coloradans encouraging them to vote when, in fact, they had already voted, causing confusion that had to be cleaned up by the county clerks. And now this leak of the voting system passwords. Given your office's repeated errors that have damaged confidence in our elections, which you say is paramount, will you resign?
Absolutely not, Kyle. And I just want to, you're unfairly characterizing and leaving out some crucial information. We came out immediately and said a postcard had been sent out to people who are ineligible. The postcard clearly stated that someone had to be a U.S. citizen. No one tried to register from that group of people. We were actively tracking it. And it became a situation where no one registered. And to push back even further, Kyle, Colorado is tied for #1 in confidence in the country in our elections. We have stood up to situations time and time again to protect the right of Coloradans, going over and beyond what anybody would ask of civil servants in this office.
Given the number of fundamental errors that your office has made that have undermined voter confidence in elections, why do you think they keep happening?
Why do errors happen? Kyle, there are unfortunately situations that arise every election that we are fixing as quickly as possible in the counties and once in a while from my office too.
In my full 15-minute interview with Democratic Secretary of State Jena Griswold, she explains why she had not yet told county election clerks about the password leak and why she might not have told the public at all. That full unedited interview is on the next YouTube channel and on 9news.com. Passwords for Colorado's voting computers were visible online for months, put there by Democratic Secretary of State Jena Griswold's office. They found out about the breach 5 days ago, but only started changing the leaked passwords after that security issue was made public. Tonight, 9 News investigates why Griswold dragged her feet on securing the voting machines and telling county clerks about the breach. Here's Marshall Zellinger.
Voting machines used by county clerks are listed on the Colorado Secretary of State's website by serial number, by county, by model, and vendor. And apparently, up until last week, there was a hidden tab next to inventory that, when unhidden, showed one of 2 passwords needed to make changes to each computer. And Democratic Secretary of State Jena Griswold knew about this on Thursday and did not start having any of the passwords changed until it became public on Tuesday. She also did not notify county clerks until it became public.
The damage done to voter confidence by the actions of Secretary Griswold's office often falls to county election clerks to repair, which is why Denver's clerk provided rare access today so that you could see the voting system machines impacted by the password leak and talk to the man in charge of securing them. We came down to the Denver County Clerk and Recorder's office to see what layers of physical and IT security somebody would have to get through if they had one of the passwords leaked by Secretary of State Jena Griswold's office. So for the purposes of this experiment, let's just say I have the leaked password. Jena rocks 1, exclamation mark. They always make you put in one of those marks. All right, we've got the password. We're going to try to get in. Layer 1.
The leaked passwords could only pose a threat if someone had insider access.
We are headed to the counting room now, so
We have made it into the building.
Denver Elections Operations Manager Jimmy Flanagan let us in, past the security, batched us into the room with the impacted voting systems.
We'll get you in.
Denver had 20 machines affected. This is one of them. It tallies votes as paper ballots are scanned. Put in the BIOS password here, and you could reactivate dormant wireless equipment. Voting systems are not supposed to be able to connect to the internet. So if somebody was able to get this far, get through the physical security, take the password, get into the BIOS,
Right.
What access would they have to the Dominion voting software, which is on the machine tabulating the votes?
They would not have any access because the BIOS is just the first layer of security on this machine. We don't even have access to those BIOS passwords, but one password that the Secretary of State doesn't have access to is the operating system that is installed on here. So each one of these has its own password to log into the operating system, and they additionally have a password to log into the Dominion application to actually launch the tabulation software. You would need that separate password, and you would need a physical token to actually launch the application.
If somebody could get into the BIOS, could they put something on that is or looks like Dominion software so that somebody logging on wouldn't even know it?
Potentially, I suppose you could if you say you had, a copy of that software. However, if you did that, it would be noticeable right away as soon as we started tabulating because it wouldn't be able to communicate with any other portions of our closed network in here. So we would notice that right away.
How confident are you on the affected machines that somebody wasn't in there with the ability to cover their tracks?
I am 100% confident that nobody has been in here modifying any of our installations.
And I found out when everybody else found out, and that's unfortunate.
Denver clerk and recorder Paul Lopez shares his team's confidence in the security of their system, but he is frustrated with Secretary of State Jena Griswold's handling of the situation.
It's not necessarily, having made a mistake or not. It's how you handle that, and how you handle the mistake, and how transparent you are, and making sure that the appropriate folks that are involved in it know about it. And
How do you
can
assess the
remedy it.
Secretary's handling of this?
Well, it's unfortunate and it was disappointing, especially because we know that, we're in the middle of an election, and, although we know that nothing was compromised and you would have to get through multi-layers of security to get here, the perception is the other thing that we're fighting. We have an election to run, and it's important for folks to know that they can still turn in their ballot and have faith that it's secure, that it's transparent, and it's easy as pie as it always is in Colorado.
El Paso County's clerk, a Republican, is calling for Secretary Griswold's resignation, saying the voters would have more trust in the process if it was run by somebody else. Denver Clerk Lopez, a Democrat, says it's up to voters to decide who is our Secretary of State. Democratic Secretary of State Jena Griswold's office was not going to tell county election clerks and the public that they had accidentally leaked voting machine passwords. 9 News Investigates has obtained an audio recording where Griswold's chief deputy tells the clerks that they were not going to be told because it would cause a media frenzy. Griswold only notified the clerks and only changed the passwords after that security breach was revealed to the media and the public. That security breach came out 5 days after Griswold's office learned about it, when the Colorado Republican Party broke the news and asked for an investigation. The passwords had been inadvertently posted on her website in the hidden tab of a spreadsheet, sitting there for months. Clerks were upset to find out about it through the news. Griswold told me that day that she hadn't decided whether the public was ever going to be told. 9 News Investigates got a hold of an audio recording of Griswold's top deputy speaking to the clerks just minutes after I talked with Griswold that day.
Josh, I appreciate that you're expressing upset. And
I'm
you're
not
traveling.
upset, Chris. I'm pissed off, and it's really hard not answering media questions the way I actually want to.
Okay, I will tell you, all I can do is be as transparent as I possibly can. We were not going to tell counties because we could not tell counties without it becoming the media storm it has become.
It's Chris.
No, it is not.
The clerk there saying it's bull is a Democratic clerk, we should mention. Election security experts say that the leaked passwords alone were not enough to compromise Colorado's voting system. Secretary of State Griswold initially brushed off the incident, said that her office would be investigating itself. The governor then called for an outside investigation. That's now happening. Griswold's office says that she regrets that the clerks found out about this from the media 5 days after she learned of the leak. But her office reiterated to us today that telling the clerks without, quote, determining the full scope of the issue and having a, quote unquote, outreach strategy, that would have posed what they see as a significant risk. Secretary of State Jena Griswold has managed to unite her fellow Democrats with Republicans in disgust over her handling of her office's leak of voting machine passwords. Tonight, 9 News investigates the bipartisan frustration from county elections officials. Here's Marshall Zellinger.
The post-election audit of voting machines was completed today, and it verified the ballots that were run through the voting machines were counted accurately. At a hearing in front of lawmakers that helped determine the budget for the Secretary of State's office, Democrat Jena Griswold used that audit as additional proof that nothing was compromised by the leak of voting machine passwords.
It confirmed, again, the accuracy of the results and that voting equipment worked exactly how it should have.
At the hearing yesterday, Griswold also defended the timeline about the password leak she learned about on October 24th, but did not notify county clerks until October 29th.
I regret that some clerks learned about the issue from a source that was not the department.
Was the plan to contact the clerks once you had determined the scope of that breach, Secretary Griswold?
We were planning to determine the entire scope and then determine what our next steps would be.
Emails 9 News Investigates requested show some of the clerks' disgust. The day before the election, Boulder County Clerk Molly Fitzpatrick, a Democrat, wrote this email to the communications director at the Secretary of State's office and copied the higher-ups, including Griswold. My understanding and sympathy has turned into complete irritation and disdain at the lack of support we are getting to communicate to voters. At this point, I have no hope that you will be supporting clerks with communications, and I'm turning my attention elsewhere. Fremont County Clerk Justin Grantham, a Republican, found out his voting machines were not impacted on October 30th from this email sent from the Secretary of State's office. My sincere apologies for keeping you all in suspense, but you are the group who did not have any equipment in the leak. The day before the election, Grantham wrote Griswold this letter seeking a detailed explanation for what happened and an apology. If you can't do either of these things, then I request you step aside and allow someone else to finish out the remainder of your term. Grantham finished the letter, I cannot in good conscience trust you in this position and defend your office. The Secretary of State's office has hired an outside law firm to look into how the passwords were leaked online, which will cost right now around $25,000. But we know how. It was an employee who had passwords in a hidden file, and then that got uploaded to the website. The voter confidence is, what did the office do to confirm each security measure worked along the way?
Yeah, that is the threat here, to voter confidence, not to the system. Interesting, Marshall, you hear from clerks who are critical of Griswold, and then there are quiet clerks. There are not a line of clerks out the door to defend her. Marshall Zellinger, thank you.